This is episode 42 with Talia Pollock.
Welcome to the Quarter Life Comeback Podcast, the show that empowers you to become the hero of your life's journey. With your host, Brian Tier.
Hey guys and girls, welcome back to another episode of the Quarter Life Comeback Podcast, episode 42 today, and I'm really excited to be speaking to Talia Pollock. Now, in case you haven't heard of her, Talia is a former stand-up comedian turned health coach, blogger, and YouTuber who helps take the hell out of healthy eating. Growing up, Talia's dream was to become a writer, but it wasn't until college that she realized that she could write about funny stuff too. She ended up becoming her school's humor columnist and later a stand-up comedian, even working for the likes of Adam Sandler and David Letterman. But the lifestyle that comes with late-night performances didn't really fit in with Talia's desired lifestyle, and her health started to suffer. After receiving no real help from any doctors or medicine, she decided to take her health into her own hands and developed a love for plant-based nutrition. Talia then decided and successfully managed to combine her love of comedy and health to create her health coaching business called Party in My Plants. In so doing, she's used her funny, infectious personality to add a refreshing twist to the health industry, and we had a lot of fun in this interview. Now, in this episode, you're going to learn how to balance a healthy lifestyle with a happy social life, a healthier way to drink alcohol, the most common health issue in 20-somethings today, how to combine your different interests and passions into a career, how Talia transitioned from comedy to health coaching, and the importance of being uniquely you. Now, as always, you can get the links and resources we mentioned in this episode at briantier.com/042. But for now, let's go hang out with Talia. Welcome back, everyone, and a big welcome to today's guest. I'm speaking to Talia Pollock. Talia, welcome to the Quarter Life Comeback.
So happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on. And it's funny how we met. For those of you listening, I was offering kind of like freelance podcast work and sort of consulting kind of stuff. And Talia was someone who reached out to me. And we didn't end up working together, but we've still been emailing each other back and forth. And we realized like, hey, we could actually be pretty good guests on each other's shows. So here we are today.
Yeah, it's great.
Mm-hmm. But for people that aren't aware of who you are and what it is you do, Talia, why don't you share a little bit about that and then your quarter life story?
Sure. So I run a really fun, lighthearted business that's all about healthy eating and making it as non-judgmental, non-challenging, and non-sucky as possible. It's called Party in My Plants. And with that, I make YouTube videos that are cooking videos. I have a new podcast. I speak at colleges and some companies. I work with clients one-on-one. I basically will do anything to help people eat healthier without hating their lives, essentially.
Yeah, and probably have the best domain name of any health coaching site.
Thanks.
I love it.
Thanks.
So Talia, talk us through like what you were doing before that and how you got to this point.
Yeah, so I always wanted to be some sort of writer, all growing up. And when I got to college, I discovered that you could actually write funny things. I was a journalism major and I was waiting for a class, and right on the floor in front of me was this newspaper, our student newspaper, and it was open to this article, and it was called "Everybody Turns into a Doctor When I'm Sick." And I was like, that's true. And I picked it up and started reading it. And as I was reading it, I was laughing out loud. And I was like, oh my God, this guy's in my head. This is so funny. And it turned out that this was the school's humor column. And I had never known really that writing your thoughts for other people could be a thing. And from that moment forward, I set the goal to write my school's humor column once this guy graduated. And even more than that, I set out to be a comedian. So I got the humor column the next semester, and that was a blast, just writing funny things that everyone on campus could relate to. It was really the highlight of my college experience. And I went, all in with comedy. I got an internship at Happy Madison, which is Adam Sandler's company. I worked in Los Angeles. I worked for the humor publication College Humor, that really funny website. I did everything I could. I started doing stand-up and improv, and I was just, all in with the comedy. And at the same time, though, I had terrible digestive issues. While I was writing all this funny stuff and performing, I felt like crap. I was very, very, very sick. And it was a struggle that went on for over 8 years. And I sought out every gastroenterologist, every naturopathic doctor, nutritionist. I even saw acupuncturist and a hypnotherapist to try to help heal my stomach from whatever was going on. And, the only diagnosis I ever got through all the tests, the blood test, the breath test, the poop test, everything was you have IBS, which to me means BS, because that's not really there's no solution really for that. That just kind of means we've ruled out everything and your stomach sucks. So, while I was in Los Angeles for that internship at Adam Sandler's production company, I happened to be still on my journey to try to figure out something that would make me feel better. And I stumbled into a raw vegan restaurant. And I did not know it was a raw vegan restaurant. I was just told to go to this place called Planet Raw that had a great coconut smoothie. And I went in and you could smell the incense wafting out into the street. And I was like, can I have the coconut smoothie? I was told that it was really good. And they come back and they bring me this huge, frothy, white, milkshake looking thing. And I push it back and I say, no, I can't have dairy. And they're like, sweetie, this is a raw vegan restaurant. And I was like, person with dreadlocks, I don't know what that is. I don't know, because vegan, this was way before Ellen DeGeneres and Beyonce were vegan and it was popular and cool. I didn't know what it meant. And, long story short, basically, I didn't want to insult them. And I drank the smoothie. I was like, whatever, everything makes me sick anyway. I'll just drink it. It didn't make me sick. And it was the first thing in 8 years that didn't make me sick. So naturally, what do? You go all in raw vegan the next day. And that's what I did. And so I went on this also simultaneous long journey through raw veganism and healthy eating and healthy living. And I was living this dual life with this stand-up comedy and comedy writing and this extreme healthy eating and living. And I needed to figure out a way to merge the two. And that is what I did with Party in My Plants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like you're quite an all-in type of person. First with the with the comedy and then with the health stuff. And I love that you kind of developed the comedy side of things right from the get-go, while you were at college, and that just grew from there. How did your parents react to you wanting to do comedy rather than a more traditional sort of journalist role?
They loved it. My dad is also a, natural born performer. Actually, me doing stand-up and performing it inspired him to start doing storytelling. So he's done a bunch of shows since, I got into that world. They would help me write sets. They would come to all my shows. They were really, really pumped about it. I think we're just there's lots of laughter in my household, and they were definitely very encouraging of me sharing that with the world.
I love it.
Yeah.
Something that stood out for me in the story that you shared there was you were doing the comedy stuff and performing at the same time as your health journey. And I can imagine that that's not really an easy thing to balance at all times. I imagine you're often performing late at night and maybe don't have as many healthy choices at hand. So how do we, for people listening, how do we balance, and I know you're going to love this question, I'm kind of softballing you here, but how do we balance living a healthy lifestyle, whatever that may look like for each person listening, with, while maintaining a social life?
It's funny, as you were saying that, I was just nodding my head. I know nobody can see me, but I was like, yes. It was hard, and it is hard to balance. both of those things. And, there's two ways to approach this. For my personal experience, it was actually too weird for me to be living those two extremes, to be in these nightclubs telling jokes to people about, I was using my own life as the material. So I was talking about my healthy ways, and they were looking at me, dipping their fried chicken wings into like some buffalo ranch sauce or whatever. Like, what are you talking about? So that's pretty much why I was like, okay, this stand-up thing, not gonna, fulfill me the same way as talking to people, about healthy eating in a really lighthearted way does. So that's part A, how I started really putting all my passion into Party in My Plants. But for people that are, just trying to balance not being miserable with eating healthy and not having to, give up going to fun festivals and parties and all that stuff. I mean, it's just about fusing more plants into your everyday life. It's not, you don't have to go extreme vegan at all, which I am not anymore. It's just about eating really more plants than you do crap, and crap being chemicals, refined, artificial, and processed foods. And if you really just eat a little bit more fruits and veggies and nuts and seeds, plants, than you do the processed crap, that you're already winning. You're already going to be in such great shape.
Yeah, because I think you said on your website, like when you first dived into the healthy eating space, I think you said like you went a bit too hard and your social life suffered a little bit.
Yeah.
And then you kind of dialed down and found that balance for you.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like I said, when I went raw vegan because of that smoothie, I was still in college. So after I was doing that internship in Los Angeles, I went back to New York where I was in college, and I had to now try to be this raw vegan person while being a normal college student. And because I had been sick for so long, I was so pumped about this feeling good thing that I completely turned my back on my social life. I said, you know what, I don't drink boxed wine anymore. So I literally deactivated from my sorority. Which was so sad. And at the time, I was so white knuckling my healthy lifestyle that these sacrifices didn't even seem as sad as they do now. But now it's like, Jesus, well, I stopped being in the sorority. I stopped going to parties. I felt like this really weird outcast person. So I even stopped going to a lot of classes. I enrolled in online classes while I lived on campus, just because I was so awkward with my, my diet. And I was like, I can't live outside my kitchen. Like, I can't go to class. Like, what will I do? And so I started taking these online classes, and yeah, sure, that the diet made me feel great, but at the same time, all the stress and negativity that I was experiencing because I was just this like antisocial person caused me a lot of health issues in addition. The stress, the sadness can really wreak havoc on your immunity and digestion. So here I was clinging to my green juice and my dehydrated kale chips, but I was feeling more depressed than ever. And that's no way to live either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as you were saying that, I was thinking about the stress of trying to eat too healthily. And there's this saying, like, it's better to eat the wrong foods with the right attitude than the right foods with the wrong attitude. And it kind of ties into that.
I always say it's better to eat French fries with a smile than Brussels sprouts with a bitch face. That's the modern version of your quote.
Yeah. I do want to speak about sort of the career stuff in the meat of this interview. But before we move on to that, we mentioned festivals, and a big part of that is drinking. Something that just popped up for me right now. I don't drink anymore, but for people in their 20s, drinking is obviously a big part of the culture of being a 20-something. Are there healthier ways to drink, or sort of healthy alternatives or habits?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a huge thing. And when I speak at colleges, you better believe this is a major component of my talks. Obviously, I'm sure everybody's heard to drink a ton of water while you're drinking. So I like to shoot for a 1-to-1, or if you're a rock star, a 2-to-1 cups of water to one drink ratio. And that is just going to slow down your drinking, and it's going to help keep you hydrated. It's a really smart move. When it comes to mixers and, those kinds of things, coconut water and kombucha are the way to go. Kombucha as a mixer is the perfect solution. It's fizzy like soda. It's like has that feeling that, it just has that thing, and it's just perfect. You don't taste really the alcohol, and it's just, there's so many different flavors, and not to mention, kombucha is super healthy. It helps you detox. Alcohol is not. It's a toxin. You cancel yourself out when you're mixing them. I mean, not really, but kind of. It's a better alternative. With that, also, coconut water is a great mixer. You can make a margarita using coconut water, lime juice, and a little bit of stevia and some ice. And those are really the ways that I go. And obviously, when you're getting a cocktail, I never allow them to put simple syrup in it. I always bring packets of stevia, say no sugar, please, and just spike it with the plant-based sweetener stevia myself.
Cool. I love it. And what are some of the other common health issues that you see in people in their 20s or in college students? Sorry.
It's all digestion. It is digestion. I mean, even people that don't have quote unquote IBS or think they have IBS or seen doctors for their stomachs, they all struggle with digestion, everybody. And a lot of that is stress. I mean, the majority of it is stress. It's stress around, you should, because there's so much in the media right now, always about this is the new miracle. Don't eat too much oil. Don't eat too many nuts, but go raw and eat a ton of nuts. And eat organic, eat local only. Oh, eat upside down. There's so much information being spewed at us that it really can stress us out, even if we're trying to make our best, most healthy decisions. So I get a lot of people that are just so intense and afraid that they're literally, quote unquote, eating healthfully wrong. They're doing it wrong. And listen, if you're eating plants, you're doing great. And there's no, perfect brand of coconut yogurt or, people just are so stressed, and therefore it's destroying their stomachs. Not for life. They can get it back. And I work with a lot of clients and their bloating goes away, because this is, my background, my own story. But I would say definitely digestion, and then all the crap that can cause, like lack of energy, fuzzy minds, somewhat, depression when you're feeling like crap all the time, lack of confidence, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and then I think sleep is probably another big one in college.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Lack of energy for sure. So we talk a lot about one of my favorite things for energy, in addition to just eating more plants. Plants will give you energy. But matcha, which is, I know, super trendy right now, the green tea powder that's ground up to make lattes and all that stuff. It's very trendy, but it is awesome. And I say that that's the Red Bull for college students. Just make matcha lattes.
Nice. All right, so I do want to move on to the main topic I want to discuss, and that is something that I think you've done really well, and it's the topic of how do we combine multiple sort of different interests into one sort of career.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you've done a great job with taking your love of comedy and writing and creating content and your health issues and turning that into what you do now. So what are your tips for combining different interests into a career?
Well, first you have to really figure out what your interests are and who you are and what you really love. I mean, like I shared earlier, I thought I just wanted to be a writer, and that completely changed when I felt really connected to this humor column and this funny piece written by this random college dude. And I followed that. So it's really smart, and something that's been really, really great for me is just kind of following that nudge, following that gut feeling, no pun intended, of what is this interesting to me? Wow, like, why is this interesting? I'm going to pursue it. So I had this desire to do stand up. I saw people doing it. I'm like, I could see that. And I was terrified to get on the stage. So even though I was scared, and instead of turning my back on this thing that seemed interesting to me, I started doing improv classes just to try to get over that stage fright. Then improv turned into acting classes and musical improv classes. And it was just everything I've done has just been one step, or going with that urge, that nudge, that curiosity. And I think that that's really important, to approach life with a certain curiosity and a willingness to try a lot of new things that you're finding interesting. And then eventually you'll realize, wow, like this is a real passion, or I have a natural gift for this. And then once you find your deep passions and natural gifts, it's much easier to figure out how to piece them all together.
Yeah, I love that you said, you noticed the article that you read that made you laugh, and that got you inspired to do your, the column, the humor column, and then also the vegan smoothie, which got you into the healthy stuff. It sounds like you're really good at sort of trusting and listening to your gut. And I think that's huge. So just to recap, then it's listening to those little things that interest us, that catch our attention, finding out what it is we're interested in, and then just getting started doing like the next small thing we can to explore that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that really will help one understand who they are and all the different sides to them. And I think then you can sort of, dive into all the business help that's out there and figure out kind of how to put it together for something that might be profitable. But I think a lot of it is nourishing those little instincts, and also having confidence and giving yourself that freedom to not just take a traditional route if that's not what's calling you. Mm-hmm. And, both my parents worked from home my entire life. So I grew up with no one ever putting on a suit and going to work. That's not something I ever witnessed. So for me, I guess it was a little bit easier to say, oh, I'm never going to put on a suit. Well, I guess that wasn't hard, but I was like, I don't want to work, for somebody else. I want to work for myself. And I think that takes a lot of courage though. And so for anybody listening, it's about nourishing those little instincts and having courage to see where you can take them and to do something that's not traditional. Because while everybody that graduated with me took a normal job, and everybody pretty much that I know other than colleagues have quote unquote normal jobs, I knew that that's not what I wanted. And it took a lot of courage to try to create something outside the box.
Mm-hmm. So what did that look like in practice then? When you got into the health stuff, did you know that you wanted to do this as a job, or was it something you were just pursuing or exploring on the side first? Like, walk us through how that looked, making the move from comedy to health coaching.
Sure. So again, I had these two dual passions, and I didn't know which one was going to win, kind of. I was like, okay, I'm so passionate about comedy. I'm so passionate about health. Let's see who's going to take the cake. And so while I was living in New York, which I still do, but while I was here doing improv and stand-up, I also went to a plant-based culinary school and a plant-based holistic health coaching training. And I got my certification as a holistic health coach and as a professional plant-based chef at this really prestigious culinary school here in New York while I was doing stand-up and improv. And again, I was just trying to see where all my passions and interests would take me. And so I kind of was covering both grounds there. And I was a little bit afraid to kind of just go all into the health because I didn't see how that would help nourish the humor loving side of me. I thought it's typically just such a serious, way of being. If you look at a lot of bloggers out there and health coaches, it's very serious. It's beautiful photos. It's like you have to live a life of perfection with a white granite kitchen in order to be healthy. And I didn't see how there was room for me. But I also didn't know how to do what I wanted to do with comedy because again, comedy is pretty rough. It's late nights, 2 a.m, nightclubs, smoking, drinking, all that stuff. And I was like, I didn't see how that would work for me. So here I am, the last job I had in comedy was I actually worked at the Late Show with David Letterman. And I walked in there and I said, okay, by the end, I gave myself like 8 months. By the end of those 8 months, I am making a decision. I'm either pursuing comedy or I'm pursuing health, because I can't keep going in and out. And I realized I wanted to pursue both. And that's when I decided to start Party in My Plans. And fortunately, I had already kind of covered my butt by doing the health coaching certification and the culinary school. So starting that business was just like, okay, I'll use the knowledge I already have and the certifications I already have to create something. And so it was kind of a natural transition because I had already had the credentials needed to start this business. It was just about confidence that I could do it differently than other people.
Yeah. And again, that came from exploring things you were interested in without tying it to like having to figure things out, and all just kind of came back full circle, which is really cool.
Yeah, I definitely have given myself, and I still am, just space to figure it out. And, if I had been so strict with myself and so stressed about figuring it out, it never would have evolved this way. I guess evolved is a really good way of describing, how things got to where they are now.
Yeah, I suppose you would have still been a sort of traditional journalist.
Yeah, not for me.
Talia, the last thing I want to touch on here is you mentioned how in the coaching and health coaching space, it's kind of like the white granite kitchen. And it's sort of like that Instagram age that we're in where everything has to look perfect. But you've grown a following by being really uniquely you. And I encourage everyone to go have a look at Party in My Plants all over the place, because you bring such a cool personality and sense of humor to an area where a lot of people are very serious about it. So I just want to hear from you, how important do you think it is to be authentic, no matter how unique you think you are?
Oh my, it's everything. You have to be authentic. That's the only way people are really going to relate to you. I mean, the Instagram age we're living in is very harmful because so many people are putting out so much phony stuff. They hire photographers to stand with them as they're walking down the street trying to be all candid, with their hair just done, and they're, a stylist around the corner, and, they're showing this false reality to people, and it's destructive both for the people that are watching it. And I mean, how far can you really go if you're not authentic? What happens when people find the real truth? So I just feel that by being real and being me, there are other people out there that are going to resonate with that. And there has to be. If I'm showing a kitchen with dirty dishes, great. Most people have dirty dishes in their kitchen. Most people don't have like perfectly scrubbed counters at all times. And I think that being authentic, you can actually inspire more people. People might have larger followings, but I would be hard pressed to imagine that, those people projecting a perfect life are really inspiring and moving people on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite sayings is, if you're one in a million, there's still 7,000 other people like you. So you can really grow a following no matter how unique you are.
Totally.
Talia, I do want to be mindful of the time, but before we wrap up, I just got some rapid fire questions at the end here.
Okay.
So first thing that comes to your mind, and just in a sentence or two, is perfect. The first one is, what do you wish you'd been told early in your 20s?
Ooh. Oh man, I was just going to relax, calm down. You're going to figure it out. Trust. I mean, I know I spoke a lot about that today, but that's me telling myself that now. And I wish I was told that earlier.
Yeah. What is the greatest opportunity for quarter lifers today?
Building anything you want on the internet. I mean, start a YouTube channel, a podcast. Find something that you're passionate about and build a movement around it. There are movements for every single thing. And it's never been more possible to follow your passions and create change with them. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
I have the biggest smile on my face right now. It's just so cool.
And it's something that I've heard from so many guests is that exact thing. It's like you have the opportunity to create something out of anything that you're interested in. So that's really cool. I have one more question before I get to that. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you and find you on the interwebs and find out all the other cool stuff you got going on?
Yeah. I mean, my website is partyinmyplants.com, but I love when people watch my YouTube videos, which is just Party in My Plants YouTube channel, youtube.com/partyinmyplants, Instagram, Party in My Plants, podcast, the Party in My Plants podcast, which is a blast and I'm loving and I'm really, really, really having fun with. And that's, everywhere, just Party in My Plants.
Yeah. I love it. Talia, before I get to the final question, I just want to take a second to acknowledge you for coming on today and for sharing your story of, not needing to have everything figured out and trusting the path and figuring things out as you go. And for also, on a more personal level, like taking your health issues and deciding to serve other people going through the same thing and creating a career out of that. I think it's really cool.
Thank you so much.
The final question that I have is, what one thing can listeners do this week to start creating their own quarter life comeback?
They can follow their interests. They can think back to, when I was young, like I used to love jump roping. Cool. So go jump rope. That was a weird example, but my point, just do something that lights you up and you never know where that is going to take you.
I love it. Talia Pollock, thank you so much for coming on the Quarter Life Comeback.
Thank you so much for having me.
So there you have it, guys and girls. That wraps up episode 42 of the Quarter Life Comeback podcast. And thanks once again to Talia Pollock for coming on and sharing a bit about how we can be healthy in our 20s, but also how we can combine multiple different interests into one career. I had a lot of fun on this one, and I'm sure you did too. And if you enjoyed it, make sure you share it around with your friends on social media and shoot me a tweet at Brian Tier to let me know your biggest takeaway. For me, it's the importance of noticing things that interest us and spark our attention, and then having the courage and the curiosity to pursue those things without knowing how they're going to fit into a career down the line. Now, as always, you can get the links and resources we mentioned in the show at briantier.com/042. And make sure you head on over to quarterlifecomeback.com to get all of these episodes as soon as they go live. Thanks once again for spending time with me this week. And until next time, keep creating your quarter life comeback.
Thanks for listening to the Quarter Life Comeback. Get started today by visiting briantier.com.